Watch what Donald Trump just did to Xi Jinping in Beijing this week, because if you only saw the headlines, you saw a man flattering a Chinese dictator, calling him a great leader, looking soft. Every major American outlet is running with that frame. But if you watch the same 24 hours through the lens of behavioral psychology, you are watching one of the most sophisticated persuasion techniques a sitting American president has ever deployed against a foreign leader. Once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. So here's what everyone watched on camera. Trump landed in Beijing on Wednesday with 30 of the most powerful business executives on the planet behind him. Elon Musk, Tim Apple, Fink, Huang, Ortberg. He walked into the Great Hall of the People, stood next to Xi, called him a great leader, toasted the relationship as one of the most consequential in world history, and invited Xi to the White House on September. He smiled, he shook hands, he posed. So if you watch the major networks, you saw Trump kissing Xi's arse. He folded. He gave Xi everything. He looked weak. But that read is missing the actual story. There is a concept in Chinese culture called mianji. The word translates to face, but it does not mean what Westerners think it means. Face is not ego. Face is the social currency that determines how much power a person has inside a hierarchy. In an authoritarian system, face is the leader's actual power. Take away this face publicly and you take away his ability to govern. Now, somehow, in the way Trump always does, he understands the principle and uses it to his advantage. He understands authoritarian psychology in a way almost no other American politician of the last 40 years has. And what he did in Beijing was the perfect application of it. This technique runs in two phases, before the meeting and during the meeting. First, he loaded the delegation, 30 CEOs flying with him to Beijing. Trump said the giveaway line himself, "I wanted the number one from each empire." So read that as a behavioral analyst, not as a political commentator. He is signaling. He is telling Xi, I take you seriously enough to bring the number ones, not the deputies, not the CTOs. No, the real deal, the right stuff. So in a system that runs on hierarchy, that signal is loud. Second, he preloaded the flattery. Before leaving Washington, Trump was telling reporters he had a great relationship with Xi, that they had a fantastic future together. He was lowering the temperature in the room before walking into it. He was telling Xi, this is not a confrontation. The frame is friendship. And when you set the frame, you control the meeting before it starts. So third, the venue. Trump went to Beijing. He let Xi host. He let Xi run the welcome ceremony. The brass band, the children with the flags, the YMCA playing loud. So, in Chinese political culture, hosting a foreign leader is a status assertion. By going to Beijing, Trump gave Xi that assertion for free. It cost Trump nothing. It gave Xi enormous face. And in exchange, Trump walked into the meeting with the kind of social credit that opens the doors that authoritarian leaders normally, keep locked. So by the time they sat down across from each other, the meeting was already half won. Now, what happened next? Trump immediately called Xi a great leader, more than once, to the cameras, in front of Xi's own officials. The surface read is sycophancy. The accurate read is something else. In an authoritarian system, the leader's prestige is the leader's power. When the American president calls Xi a great leader inside the Great Hall of the People on Chinese state TV, he's handing Xi a domestic political asset. Xi can now tell his own party that the most powerful country in the world treats him as a peer. That asset is worth more to Xi than almost anything Trump could offer financially. And Trump just gave it to him for the price of, what? One sentence? And then the toast. The rich and enduring ties between the American and Chinese peoples. That phrase is doing work. It is not about the leaders. It is about people. It is about history. Trump is putting Xi in a lineage of respected Chinese leaders going back centuries. That framing is catnip for any authoritarian who needs to anchor his legitimacy in continuity rather than elections. Then there was the invitation. September 24th. Xi at the White House. That is the reciprocal gesture. But watch what Trump did not do. Xi warned him publicly about Taiwan, called it the most important issue in the relationship, said there would be clashes if it was not handled properly. And Trump did not argue. He did not correct him. He let Xi have that moment on the record uncontested, because contesting it would have forced Xi to escalate, which would have boxed Xi into a more aggressive public position on Taiwan, which would have made the rest of the meeting impossible. By staying quiet, Trump let Xi say his piece and then quietly moved past it. And here's why this lands so hard on Xi and not on a Western leader. In Western democracies, leaders get their legitimacy from elections. If Macron loses face at a meeting, he goes back to France and wins an argument with the press. His power does not depend on the room. In an authoritarian system, on the other hand, there are no elections. Legitimacy comes from prestige and public stature. Undermine that stature and the whole system wobbles, which means that an authoritarian leader sitting across from the American president has one job above all others. Do not lose face. If the American president gives him face, he can afford to be flexible on substance because his domestic position is reinforced. If the American president takes face away, he has no choice but to dig in, retaliate, and refuse to concede on anything visible. So Trump understands this, and this is how he handles Xi so well. And this is not a one-off. Watch every authoritarian Trump deals with. Putin, Trump calls him a great leader, sits next to him at press conferences, refuses to publicly contradict him, and meanwhile, the United States is selling weapons to Ukraine and crushing Russian oil revenue by squeezing Iran's market share. Kim Jong-un. Trump writes him beautiful letters, walks across the DMZ, calls him smart, rocket man, playfully, and meanwhile maintains every sanction that has kept North Korea isolated. So the pattern is always the same. This is why Trump's foreign policy looks unhinged from the outside and works from the inside. The optics look like surrender. But what Trump achieved with this meeting is real substance. I gave you the details on why Trump got the upper hand on this summit on my Power Pundit channel, link in description. So the mainstream media is built to evaluate optics. Authoritarian leaders are built to evaluate receipts. And the gap between those two evaluations is where Trump operates. The takeaway from watching this kind of behavior up close is simple. Flattery, in the right hands, is not weakness. It is one of the most powerful behavioral tools ever invented. And the reason it works is that human beings, especially powerful ones, are starved for genuine recognition. When you give them recognition, even strategically, even cynically, you bypass their defensive systems and access the part of the brain that wants to reward you for it. We are just wired that way. So the next time you see Trump being publicly nice to a leader you don't like, instead of reacting to the optics, ask yourself one question. What is he extracting on the back end? What is quietly moving in his favor while everyone is mad about the toast? 9 times out of 10, that is where the actual story is. But let me know what you think about this in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Bar Language Guy. Much love and bliss.